Sveiki laidos žiūrovai. Šios laidos svečia Kolumbietis Diego Esteban. Jis jau 3,5 metų gyvena Lietuvoje, prieš tai gyvena Honkonge, kurį susitiko lietuvį, įsimylėjo ir atvyko kartu į Lietuvoje. Po to, po 5 mėnesių išsiskyrė, Diego liko čia gyventi. Kaip Diego sekasi gyventi Lietuvoje, pakalbėsime laidoje Gimę Lietuvoje. Diego, labai ačiū už nuostabų kūrinį. Labai tikrai, super labai faina. O jūs groja elektriniu smuiku ir kaip jis atrado jūsų gyvenimas, šitą jūsų smuiku?
So when I was a little kid, I grew up seeing my mother singing and playing the guitar. And I think when I was 4, during one of her lessons, I joined and then I started playing the flute. And then her teacher encouraged me to join music school. So when I was in 5th grade, I joined music school and I did that for 5 or 6 years. But then I quit because I felt like it didn't, like I love classical music, but I didn't really feel that it resonated with me. And I wanted to play something different. So I started listening to different kinds of music, and then I found this amazing quartet from the UK, and they were playing electric instruments and really cool music. So I was like, I want to be like that. I want to play like that. So I told my dad, and he got me my first electric violin. So I just started playing on my own for myself. This was for many years.
When was the first time you have this, like, let's say, the courage, the boldness, like, to take part in, let's say, in a professional event or, let's say, concert? You know, it's going to take a bit of time for you to develop such confidence that, yes, I can play it in a huge crowd of people.
So before moving to Lithuania, I played in a few venues. I played in Côte d'Ivoire, in the Ivory Coast.
Oh,
I lived
Côte
there.
d'Ivoire.
So we did a big concert, but it was for we wanted to donate the money, so it was through the French embassy. So that was sort of how we organized it. And then I did a concert in New York in 2017.
Nice.
But then really I mostly just play for myself, but it was during COVID. I had a lot of free time. So I started recording some music on my own here in Lithuania. And then a couple months later, I met a singer, and she asked me if I could play for one of her songs. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So one day she called me out of nowhere, and she's like, hey, can you record this violin part for my song? And I'm like, sure. When? She's like, today. Like, I was like, I can try, but like,
you were
I
not
can
prepared.
play, but I'm not a professional musician. So I said, I can try, but I've never heard this song, so I don't know how this is gonna go. So I showed up to the studio, and I met with the producer. His name is Vitalius, and he's this really talented, cool guy. And I really liked working with him. I was very stressed out. I was like, oh my God, this guy is going to think that I suck at this, that, why would this singer send me? So we tried out some stuff, and it was really cool. It was a great vibe. The song turned out really well. And so then I said, hey, I have this song that I recorded. Can you do something with it? And he did. And so we've been working together for over 2 years. And in that path, I have bumped into some people that have taught me a lot. Justinas Stanislovaitis, for example, he's a well-known singer here, and he performs often. We did a song together, and that day when we met at the recording studio, he asked me if I wanted to join his band. And so ever since we've been playing together, when I have a show, I invite him to play with me. And now I've met more people, a drummer, and there's one of my friends who also plays the violin. She joins me sometimes for shows. So it was like a gradual process. And it came, I guess, like out of all this energy is coming out of this love for music that I have, this passion, but also, I guess, they've been teaching me a lot. So it's not something that I did on my own, but something that happened because of the support of so many people.
Do you have like any other job apart from playing this? Do you, let's say, full-time job?
Yes, so actually music is not a job for me at all.
It's your hobby, or
it's it's a hobby. I am a full-time teacher.
Oh.
I work at the American International School of Vilnius.
Wow.
And I teach languages and literature there.
Languages, and which specific language is that?
So I teach Spanish and English literature. In the past, I've taught Chinese. That's what I actually trained for.
You speak Chinese?
Yeah, I studied in China. Half of my bachelor's degree I did there, and before coming to Lithuania, I was in Hong Kong teaching Chinese.
So I can say, like, you are not only a teacher, you are not only a performer or like an instrumentalist, you're also a linguistic, because you speak more than 3 or 4 languages, if I would say.
Yeah, so that's actually, I went to school and I studied languages and cultural studies. Oh. So I did French, Chinese, and of course Spanish is my first language, and I grew up speaking English as well, so that's how it happened.
Going to Chinese language, I read that you lived in Hong Kong, and then you eventually find yourself in Lithuania. How does that happen?
So when I was living in Hong Kong, I met a Lithuanian guy, and I would say like music brought us together, and so we fell in love, and long distance isn't easy. So eventually we decided that it was time for us to be together, and so I quit my job and I moved here. So that's how I ended up here.
Okay, and do you still keep in touch together now? Do you live together or you've gone separate ways?
Yeah, we split not long after I moved here.
Don't you have this kind of something that resonates in you? Why am I here? If I already split it because of the reason why I'm here.
Yes, that was a question I was asking myself constantly, and I was like, I should just leave. Because of course, going through a breakup isn't easy, and
Yeah.
I was still very new in Lithuania, so I didn't have many friends. But then after we split, I got a job offer from the school. So I was like, oh wow, this is what I've been looking for all this time. So I accepted that job offer. And then the music thing started picking up. So there were lots of questions in my head, like, okay, why is it that I'm here? So actually at the time I was like really wondering, I just kept asking myself that question. So I did this tattoo. Tikek.
What? Tikek?
Tikek, yeah, in Lithuanian, like believe, like trust,
Tikek,
right?
tikek.
So every time I felt like I had this question in my head, I would just look and be like, oh, this is a reminder that I'm here for a bigger purpose. And at this point, I could say that I know I'm here because I have a job that I love. And I work in a place where I can be myself, where I'm valued and respected. And I never really expected to do anything with music. But it has really been great to just enjoy playing here and seeing that people are very welcoming, and yeah, really that's all I want, being able to play and share my music and be myself.
When you found a job, you found a reason to stay. Okay, you were contemplating to leave or not, you found a job and stay. What about finding a friends in Lithuania? Is it difficult to find friends, to, like, let's say, keep up with friends?
Yes, I mean, I've lived in the US, in France, in China, in Africa, and comparing to those places, it does take longer to make friends. It's a little more challenging. It requires a lot of initiative from, I guess, my side more than from the other side. But once you get there and sort of like break the ice and get in, then you find some really sweet people, very loyal. I guess it's just that first approach kind of like it takes a while.
Tell us more about Colombia, because I read several interesting facts about Colombia. I read about the coffee industry. It's the home to tons of varieties of coffees. There were very interesting things about his also Escobar. It's impossible to talk about the history of Colombia without talking. But tell us more. How is Colombia? Which city have you?
So I was born and raised in Bogota.
Bogota.
Which I guess it's interesting too because people recognize that city here because of Antanas Mockus. He was, in my opinion, the best mayor that our city has had. And it's someone that it's well known in Colombia, not only for being a good politician, but a very honest one, which is something that you don't encounter very often in Colombia. There's a lot of corruption, and he's managed to really keep it clean throughout his whole career. So about Colombia, I mean, what can I tell you? Like really friendly people, warm people. Yeah, very open. I know a lot of like, when it comes to the culture, like really loud people who love dancing and drinking. The food's great, traveling there is great. There's just a whole variety of things to do and see.
What was the first impression when you landed physically here? What was so wow about Lithuania?
How cold it was.
How cold?
I visited a few times before I moved. And the first time I visited was around March. So it was still pretty cold. I remember going to Trakai and it was all frozen. But it was very beautiful, very peaceful, and very safe. And those are things that I really appreciate because of where I come from. So that's also partly one of the things that has kept me here. It's really a peaceful place.
How is Lithuanian language for you? How do you see it? Have you started, let's say, learning? Have you started speaking a bit?
So first of all, I find Lithuanian language very beautiful. Like it's really nice to listen to it. I did study. I took some lessons with a private teacher, and that was very useful. But I found myself, like I was struggling to practice because I go to work in the morning, so that's like a little bubble. You go there and everyone speaks English, and that's what I'm expected to speak. That's the language of instruction. And then I go home and maybe I go to the gym or I see a couple of friends. Most of my friends are foreigners. I do have Lithuanian friends that I'm very close with, but we mostly speak in English. So I really never got the chance to practice. So eventually I stopped. But I can have a basic conversation. I actually understand quite a lot. So many times I understand, or, you know, I can say a few things.
So let's say, for example, now you want to like introduce yourself in Lithuanian language. How will you do that?
Mano vardas Diego Esteban. Esu iš Kolumbijos.
Got it.
Aš groju smuikas, elektrinis smuikas.
Oh, super.
You got me.
It's very good. Those are like, I think, basic stuff. I think if you find yourself in any difficult situation in which the language is a necessity to survive, I think you will find your way out.
Yeah, you know, this has been actually the first place where I've lived where I don't speak the language. So I do feel limited. Like, I feel like sometimes people even don't want to meet because they feel sort of shy because they don't speak English. Or so I feel like I should definitely do better and force myself to speak and to learn.
Interesting. Let's talk about your family back in Colombia. Do you have a brother? Do you have a sister? What was the reaction when you decided, okay, of course you've lived several places abroad, I'm sure. Leaving China to come to Lithuania wouldn't be that probably wow from them. But when you told them, oh, I found myself in Lithuania, I think I'm going to be staying here for a long period of time. What's their impression? First, do you have a brother and sister?
I do have a sister.
Younger or older?
Older sister, just 10 years older. And I have my mom lives in Colombia. My dad passed away 3 years ago, but it happened actually right before I moved here. So he was aware that I was moving here, and he was a big part of it too. He helped me a lot with like documentation and things back home.
Nice.
And yeah, they're used to me like moving around, and they were actually happy because I was moving at least closer from, you know, I was living in Hong Kong. Now I'm in Europe. It's closer to Colombia. Yeah, but it was a good reaction, because I remember when I told them I was moving to Africa, they did everything they could to convince me not to.
Not
and
to
I still
go.
went.
And for how long did you stay in Africa, in Côte d'Ivoire?
I lived there for 2 years in
2 years.
Abidjan.
Abidjan. Yeah. Oh, but you speak French, so probably.
Yeah, it was easy. Yeah, and people there are really warm. So yeah.
That's interesting. And do you often visit Colombia? How often let's say per year?
I don't actually. I moved away almost 10 years ago, and I have only been twice. I was there this summer. I was there for 6 weeks. But before that, I didn't. I just visited once.
What do you think probably is missing from, let's say, Lithuanians? Because I remember you said it takes time, effort to get close to them. What do you think more is missing?
I think maybe more initiative, because there's really sweet and really talented people too here. Like moving a little bit in like this music network, I found so many talented people, but sometimes they're a little afraid to like show themselves or try new things. With people too, I feel like sometimes they want to meet, but then they're just a little too shy. So sometimes you interpret that as like, oh, they can be rude or too cold, but many times it just comes from that place of maybe insecurity or just being shy. So I'll just say like, maybe stand out, stay away from that comfort zone and try new things, because there's so much potential here for so many things. But I think this is gradually changing, especially with the younger generation.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I remember when I also came here, I was the one who keep initiating. And after I spent 10 years here, I become so cold. I don't initiate. And my Lithuanian friends are saying, Samson, it's been 3 months I see you. What's going on? I said, you made me like this.
True, yes, that's true.
So you made me, I got into the system, I got into the culture, then I become not good at initiating anymore. And you mentioned that you miss food back in Colombia. What is your favorite food in Colombia?
There's this thing we call patacon, which is a fried plantain. It's a savory, I'm sure you know plantains.
Yeah, I do.
So we like smash them and fry them, and we put things on it. Before COVID, they were selling them here in one of the grocery stores, but not anymore. Yeah, that I miss.
What about Lithuanian cuisine? What's your favorite Lithuanian?
There are two things that I eat very often and I enjoy a lot. Koldūnai. I love those things. I could eat so many. And
Šaltibaršiai. Wow. Yeah. So we have things in common. I also like šaltibaršiai. Yeah, it's my favorite. Any day. Lithuanian said it's advisable to eat it during the
summer,
right? But I don't care. I eat it. I eat it both summer and the winter time. Diego, what would you like to wish our, let's say, audience, the Lithuanians who are watching this show? This is going to be our last question for this show. So
I guess two things. When it comes to initiative, just don't be afraid to show yourself. Because again, I've met so many talented people here. With so many things, I'm like, sometimes I think like, I wish I were as talented as you are, because I'm very outgoing and I'm not shy. So I just do whatever I feel. That's my thing. I just follow my heart, and then I get in trouble. But so I'd say, listen more to their hearts and really show the world, because there's so much to appreciate here. And then, visit Colombia. Actually, my 2 best friends came with me to Colombia this summer. So they came for 2 weeks, and they met my family, and we traveled together. And I think they really enjoyed it, and they were very open-minded. I was trying, making them try different things and weird food, and they enjoyed it a lot.
Good. Thank you so much.
Well,
thank you so much,
Diego.
Thank you so much.